Okay, I stopped the time lapse because I realized what I want to do here is sometimes I'll either work in stepped keys like this, or I'll start to put in splines. Mainly because splines help you with the arcs. They help you visualize the arcs. The computer will do some of the work, and then you can actually pull back and or push forward, I guess, and really give good arcs to your in-betweens, because you want to make sure that they're right. And sometimes when you're working in stepped motion or stepped animation, it's hard to see where your arcs are going. Like this one right here, I really want him to get a good wind up into this pose right here. So what I'm going to do, I've saved this choreography as 02, and I'll save it right now. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on bones, and this is going to take a second, but I'm going to hit my graph editor, and it's going to take a while here, and I'm going to zoom out. It's not very fast. Let's go back to this. I'm going to zoom all the way out like this, hit my graph editor again, wait for it to change. Now I'm going to click and drag and select everything here. Now you have to hold down the mouse button until you see it highlighted. If you let go, it won't highlight it. You have to hold it down until you see the whole thing highlighted, which usually takes a while. But I'm going to change everything to spline interpolation. Okay, so now I see it highlighted, so I'm going to let go of the mouse. And once this yellow bracket comes around it, I'm going to right click on it, say interpolation method. This is all really slow because of the amount of keyframes that are highlighted. So once it highlights, I'm going to go to spline and just click it. Now it's going to take a second, and it's going to go through every single keyframe and make it a spline. So now we're on splines here, as you can see. So now I'm going to click off. And it's going to clear that selection. Click on one bone. And whenever this decides. Okay, now we're faster. Okay, so now we're faster. So now I can do stuff like what I was talking about, where you can see what a specific bone is doing. If I open up my control body, you can do one of two things. You can click on transform, translate, and it will just show you your translation keys. You can click on scale and it will show you your scale keys, or you can click on rotate and it will show you those. Now hopefully in the newer versions of Hash they have fixed this, but like I said in my other tutorials, you click on X, Y, or Z and it doesn't show you the graph, but if you click rotate it shows you all of them, and so that's kind of annoying. So what I do is I just find the rotate ones down here. If you click on them down here underneath control body when it's opened up, if I click control body and it's open, I just click on them down here and then you can see what they look like. Now down here I keep zoom Y or fit Y, whatever you want to call it. I keep that down because that keeps the graph visible for me. If not, if you can hold down Z and drag and scale it any way you want, but I just click that so it makes sure that the whole thing fits. So like translate Y is what I was looking at before. Now you can see he goes don't, and he comes up, comes down, and maybe I want to grab that and pull it down just a little bit. Comes back up, comes down a little further, comes up, doesn't go down quite as far, and I think I want him to go a little further, so each time he comes down a little further. So he goes don't touch my, and then he comes up big and goes stuff and comes down pretty big. Stuff. Don't touch my stuff. Like that. And that way you can really see how it's how the what the motion of that bone is. Okay, so now we're really getting into the kind of the nitpicky stuff. Now, let me show you this one keyframe that I was just working on right here, right in the middle here. If I go to this keyframe, I've got this right here. I'm going to force a keyframe on everything, and you can see what the curves for this hand are. Okay, so this keyframe right here, I want to make sure that this hand coming up looks right. Now, one thing that I can do is I can do an onion, what's called an onion skin. If I go to Tools, Options, and then I go to Onion Skin, if I turn it on, you can say steps from frame, before and after. Let's just do 5, or let's do 3, no, let's leave it at 5 before and 5 after, and it's steps, meaning each individual one. Let's do 2 steps. Or we could say keyframes and show in-betweens. Okay, and you can draw them wireframe. Now if I hit OK, it's going to take a second here, but you can see what's going on here. You can see how it's drawing. Now it takes a long time to draw because it's in shaded mode. It's got to draw all this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in, customize, Tools, Options. I'm going to do a step every 10. And that kicked it down a little bit, not very much. Oops, keep hitting the wrong one. Let's do 2 before, 2 after, and step 5. That should be better. It's a little bit better. Now you can see when he comes up, okay, kind of what the arc is doing. So you can see right here how his hand starts here and his wrist kind of does this. Okay, but right here what I'm getting is this. I'm getting kind of this weird shape right here. So I want to make sure that that arc is correct. Now, if I go in here and I look at the translation data for his hand, if I look at Translate W, you can see how I want this to be a nice curve. And as I'm dragging this, you can see how it updates. So this, okay, and then Z, I want it to be a nice curve into the next frame. So now he brings it up, and we're getting a lot better of a curve. He's going here to here to here to here to here. Okay, so we're getting a better curve there. Now I could, if I wanted to, take it out a little further. So if I hit Translate Z, that's going Z on the bone. So I want to take it out just a little further. And this is still quite a bit, so I'm going to go to Options, Onion Skin, say 2. Oops, no, the bigger the step, the less drawings. There we go. So now if I go into shaded mode, let me do this. Okay. So now you can kind of see where his hand is. And we're getting this good spot here, 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 and here. So we have him arc out and come back and settle in to his hand. So that's better than I wanted, or than it was before. So I'm going to go back and just turn Onion Skin off. Hit OK. So So you can see how he goes out. Now maybe a little far, so I'm actually going to bring it in. Now one thing you have to be careful of is what Z means. You can see now Z on this bone translating in the Z. You can see down here what the Z is on that bone. So I don't want to do it too much now. I just want to go here. Now if I go translate Y, that's in and out. So I actually want him to take it out a little further. And then translate X. That looks fine. So get some good curve on there. So he pulls his hand up. Okay, so we got that curve. Now let's try this one. Let's go to this hand, and I'm just going to go to translation alone. This is the in-between here. You can see how he moves. Now with this bone, if you look at here, it's moving backwards in the Y. So if I go Y, you'll notice it's very flat. It's not moving up and down in the X at all. If you notice here, the X is moving this way and the Y is moving that way. And then Z, of course, is coming this way. So I want, right here, you can see how if I do this, if I here, and then it's pretty flat coming right back here, I want it to dip down for an arc. So you can see right here, now that's going to move forward to back, which I don't really care. The translate Y, I can have it kind of a nice little swooping curve. Z is in and out, and so I can just have it kind of normal, but I actually want him to go out a little bit. But X is what I want. Now X is my in-between. I want to make sure that that it's not too far. You can see how the IK doesn't allow it to stretch that far. So I want to put it about right here. Now this keyframe, that's a key that I have to have. Okay, so I want to make sure this one right here, oops, I want to make sure this one right here is just enough to bend his elbow, just a little bit, but it's a nice curve right there. Okay. So I'm just going to check like his pelvis, translate the Y on, or translate right here, looks fine and smooth. Translate X, fine and smooth, that's all good. His hips don't do a whole lot, but let's do the rotation on the back here. If you know rotation, if you notice this, sometimes you'll get kind of a little flattened area there. What you want to do is straighten that out with the curves. So that's fine. That's fine, and this could probably go like this a little bit. Okay, so just smooth out those curves. So we'll do a lot more of that when it comes to finessing, but I just wanted to show you how you can make sure that you get your good curves in your in-betweens. So now if I go to my camera view, stuff. He's got a good curve and then goes into his shot. Okay. Now one thing that you'll notice is, I'm just going to shrink all this stuff down. If I go here, I want him to hold this pose for a minute right here, and then hold this pose. So it looks like because right now he's just going touch out, touch out, touch out. So I'm just going to start working kind of in a forward, or in a, instead of doing pose to pose, I'm just going to start doing a straightforward version here. I'm just going to grab this keyframe, force everything just to make sure. Sometimes it takes a minute. Copy that frame. Usually takes a minute. And then paste it right here. Okay. Or what I can do is I can actually grab it like this and I can move it around just slightly. Oops. Okay. Let's see if there's any open here. That was it. So let me shrink that. Sometimes when you have stuff open, it doesn't want to copy stuff. We'll fix those other things in a minute here. But let's do this. I'm going to copy this one. And I'm going to go a few frames. I'm going to paste it. So he holds that, right here. Copy this one, paste it there. Copy that one, paste it there. And then I'm going to copy this one, paste it here, and copy this one, and I'm going to paste it about right here. Okay, now one thing I'm noticing just looking from these keyframes, this to this, that's looking better, but it looks like he's a little too far. He comes out and then up. If you notice, right here, and then he comes out to here, and then he goes up. So it's almost like this triangle, like like this. Whereas I want him to swing out like this. So on this frame right here, I'm actually going to do this, where I rotate his hand just a little bit, and I move it up so it looks like it's kind of a broken joint slightly. But that way, there we go. This is the hold. I'm actually going to get rid of it. I'm going to get rid of this one. Oops. So all these ones where I kind of put in a hold, I'm going to get rid of them just to get rid of some keyframes here. Okay. So that's a better arc. If you look from here to here to here, it's a much better swing like that. Because before it was down here, and so it would go across. The arc kind of looked like this, whereas now it looks like this. So I think that feels a lot better. Okay, now here we're going to have some of those same moving holds. Now I deleted those ones before because I just didn't want to have those cumbersome keyframes. But what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to copy this keyframe. So I'm going to just hit copy. I'm going to go in between this one. And I'm going to hit paste. Now you can see how he holds it, kind of passes up, and then goes, my. Okay. But one thing that I want here is, you can see his hand is translating in a real flat line out to here. So what I'm going to do now is put an in-between right here, where I'm actually going to roll his hand back so you get kind of a whip action, and I'm actually going to raise it up too. Because if you look in my video where he says this is mine, it's pretty flat. If you can notice right there, it goes from there to there. It's pretty flat. But at the same time, I want to exaggerate some things, so I put that little bit of arc, maybe not as high as I want it, maybe about right here, and I want to rock it back a little bit, so it really feels like he's kind of reaching back for that. Okay, so I want him to hold this a long time. If you look in my reference footage here, this is my side of the living room, my side of the living room. You can kind of see what my hand does. It does this arc kind of like this. It doesn't just go down like this, it actually retracts and then comes back down. And that helps you see the motion quite a bit. So I'm actually going to copy this keyframe here, and because I have everything, or the key model button down, it's going to show it better. So I'm going to copy that, and it's going to paste all the bones that have keyframes, and I'm going to paste it there. The nice thing about working in splines is when you copy and paste the same keyframe, you get a little bit of overshoot. And we'll tweak it so it looks better, but the default is actually quite nice, where you get a nice kind of moving hold. Now when he says living room, when I say living room on this right here, my side of the living room, right there, I come all the way down, and so right here, I don't want this pose. I want to copy this one, and I'm going to paste it right here. But he moves a little bit forward, down. You got to move his hand if you do that too. And this hand comes down like this. So he looks like that. Okay, so I'm going to adjust his elbow here. Now I don't want him to go into this, I don't want him to start to go here until this one right here. So I'm going to copy this keyframe right here, and I'm going to paste it about right here. Okay, now I've got these frames in here. Now I want to droop his shoulder a little bit here. You want to see movement almost everywhere. The problem with some animations that you'll find is they may move the arm or something like that, but a shoulder doesn't move, or the spine doesn't move, or the neck doesn't move. Whenever you move something on your body, everything else reacts to it. So you have to make sure that you're not just independently animating certain things. So even right here, I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. I'm going to rotate him just a tiny bit there, tiny bit there, tiny bit there. So you get a little bit of movement. Now, if you remember here, when I did this, hand comes in right here, and that's the in-between that I want to put in. It's not right here. His hand is up here, elbow down, and it's like this. Now, right here you have to be careful that because there's gimbal lock going on, where it doesn't know which way to rotate, so it rotates the easiest way it can, and it rotates backwards. And we will fix that later on. We'll put a keyframe in between there. But for right now, what we'll do is we'll just rotate this. Oops, that's the wrong one. Not quite as far. There we go. And we'll rotate his shoulder a little bit up there. And the elbow down just a little bit. So now I'm getting that good kind of snap back down. Okay, so now I think I'm going to move on. So right here, I just want to force a keyframe to make sure everything's keyed. And we'll move on to the next in between. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of working, I went pose to pose for the keyframes, and I'm kind of going straight ahead for the in-betweens, doing a little bit of posing and straight ahead. Okay, so this next part, I'm going to do an in-between right here. Okay, so let's check here. I need to have that pose right there. And I need it to be right where he says "and." So about right here. I'm going to grab him here. You can look at the picture here. So now one thing that you can see is that the eyes keep looking this way. I have an eye target out there that I will animate later on. So let's just make sure. Okay, so I want the elbow out a little bit more. The hand kind of rotated a little more like this. Not quite as much like that. Okay. Now, like I said, you want to have this one turn a little bit. This one maybe a little tiny bit. And this shoulder is going to drop just a little bit. Then this hand needs to drop a little bit. If the shoulder drops, the hand's got to drop. So I'm just going to force a keyframe on everything. Now, we'll have to do an in-between right here to fix that, but we'll do that later. So right here, the in-between that I want is, I'm going to copy that and paste it about right here. That is your, and that your. Now this part right here, if you notice, in that is your. So my arm comes up like this, so I want him in between that is your. So I'm actually going to click on bones here, minimize everything, make sure keyframe set for everything on this one, slide this keyframe over. Okay, I'm going to copy this one. I don't know why it's not sliding. I'm going to paste it there. I'm going to go back over here, delete that keyframe. And this one, I'm going to actually copy it, paste it about right here. And right here is where I want to have him actually recoil back a little bit. And I want to have him come up a little bit and rotate back just slightly. His hand come out just a little bit here. His shoulder drop just a little bit. His head come up like this. Force a keyframe. And I'll get a better how it hits and goes out. What I'll do is I'll actually copy this keyframe. I'm actually going to paste it here and paste it here. And then I'm going to delete this keyframe right in between so it goes. Okay, now let's check this where he says your side is where he goes back to this, or where I go back to this. So I'm going to actually copy this frame, go back to here, paste it right here. And I'm going to copy this one, paste it about right here. That's a little too fast, so I'm actually going to copy this one, go down to about right here and paste it, and then go back here, delete it, grab this one, copy it, drag it down a few frames, paste it, and go back over here and delete it. That may be too quick of a transition, so I'm going to copy this one, drag it back a little bit. Usually I'd just be sliding it around. For some reason it's not copying, but so I'm just, or not sliding. Your side. Now, as I'm watching this, I'm looking at it and saying, you know what, I may in the reference do it this way, but I want him to point for longer. I want this pose to last for longer than that. So, let's see if I can do this. I'm going to shrink the bone tree here, grab both of them, slide them. Now, for some reason, I don't know why it's doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this frame right here, drag it down to about here, copy this one, put it about here, and then I'm going to delete that keyframe and that keyframe. Okay. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is he's shifting his weight, but his hips don't move. So right here, he's kind of leaning. And right here, I need to have his weight kind of shift like this. Okay, so now here I'm going to copy that, paste it. Now, it may seem a little messy right now as I'm going through it, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at the motion and see if I have the in-between the way I need it. Once I have it the way I need it, I can go in and I can fix things in between the in-betweens, so these breakdowns in here, I can go in between and figure it out. I can hold stuff so the graph is right. Like if I look at his hand in here, what I'll do is I'll look at each individual channel and I'll notice if there's weirdness in it. Like for example, right here, it's kind of weird how it's doing that. So what I may do is just slide it around a little bit, rotate that. You can see how it should be kind of easing into this right here. This one's the same. I mean, I could do that to it, and that way it fits a little better. This way is the same. So the nice smooth curves. But that's what I'm trying to look for right now. Is I'm trying to look for good arcs, good curves, and just making sure that my keyframes are set correctly and my in-betweens are set correctly, so that they have good arcs, that it's appealing, and so that the motion is correct. Now, stuff like this, you'll notice how his hand goes a little far, so it straightens out his arm and comes back. That's just because of the graph. If I look at the graph for his hand, you'll see this big arc like that. We will go in and fix that later. So let's keep going on this. This is a key. This is a breakdown here, or an in-between. And you can see how his hands are all crunched up like this. Now if I go like there, and how he swings his hands up, or I swing my hands up like this. So not only are my hands coming up, my shoulders are coming up too. So right here, I'm going to actually go in and I'm going to just set a keyframe for everything. Okay. So then I'm going to go here and I'm going to grab his hands, pull them out. So a little further than that. And rotate them around. This one too, just rotate it around. But I want it, he's bringing his hands up. So I want him to have some follow through on him. And so I don't want him to already be in the up state like this, because he's bringing them up. They need to be following his arm. So they need to be about right there, and I'll bring them in about like this. This kind of the same thing. Make sure the elbows are set right. If I look here, my elbows are kind of like that. So if I want to make sure that that's the same, this hand is kind of up like this, and not quite that far, about there. And this hand is about chest high, right here, and this elbow's down here, and it's rotated up just a little bit, like this. Do that, and I'm going to bring my shoulders up just slightly, and I'm going to crouch the neck. So look at those. Let's look at those arcs there for a second. So we need to look at a few things. We need to look at his hands. Let's look at the graph here. You can notice how the graph, let's do the rotation. This is a little strange here. Strange here. Okay, so that rotation looks okay. Rotate Z looks decent. It could probably be right there. W, that's fine. Now, notice this. This is all messed up. So I just want to go through and make sure that the tangents are all correct on these, so that it works right. So now you can see it's a nice arc, whoop, coming up on that hand. So translate Z. I want it to kind of go in and come back out, settle in. There we go. Now let's do the other hand just to make sure. So we're going to look at the rotation, that's fine. Those are all fine. Fix that just a little bit. Okay, our translation X is fine, Y is fine, and Z could probably bow it just a little bit, but it looks pretty good. Okay, one thing I'm noticing is his shoulders here are high, and here they need to be higher. Okay, so if we look at controlled clavicle, open these up. Okay, so those are looking pretty good. Let's make sure this is a good curve. Now let's look at his neck and his head, because I noticed how there was a little bit of a pop in that. So let's look at the rotation here. Let's go right here. Don't want the rotation to be, we want it decent. So I'm just kind of straightening things out. Okay. Okay. So the neck does a better job. Now let's look at the head. Let's look at each of the rotates here. There we go. And just make sure that they all look correct. The biggest thing that I've noticed when I'm animating is if I don't make the curves smooth, I start getting weird popping going on. And so as long as I go through and I make these smooth and I make the transitions from one to the other pretty smooth, I seldom have problems with any sort of popping. See, so now we have that must. Now we have that good neck movement. Okay, I'm going to go up and I'm going to save my cho, just so I don't lose anything. Minimize all these, just so I don't screw something up. So let's go back to the keyframes here, and you'll notice. So right here, now let's look here. Must. When my head's turned like that, let's go to that keyframe over here. Must. really want to exaggerate that. So let's do this. Let's pull it up like this. And roll his head back a little bit. Okay. That gives it a little more kick. Must. Now this we right here we need an in-between. Right here. Okay, so let's do this. Let's force a keyframe, and then we'll look at his arcs here on his hands. They're pretty much moving straight. What I need to do is I need to move them out like this, and then this one out like this, so that there's a good arc on them. It'll help them look better. And move his elbows out a bit. And they look like they just dropped too much. This part is too slow right here. Like this to this, here to here is just too slow. You want it to be faster, where he goes, must. And his hands are lagging quite a bit. So, let's look at our reference here. Must you. So he goes, must you. So he actually takes this keyframe right here. Let's copy that. I'm going to paste it like a frame before, and then a few frames after, and that will give us the little jog, or little up down. Must. And then we'll take this keyframe, copy it, and move it down a couple, and then delete it. Copy this one, move it down a frame, paste it. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going through and making sure that the timing is kind of right on these. Now you'll notice this frame here, there's a long pause between this and this, and I want to hold it, but I need a middle keyframe here, so I'm actually going to copy this one. Go over here, to about here, and paste it. So he holds, and then copy that again. I'm going to paste it a little closer. So now I'm going to copy this one, and I want this hold. So I'm going to paste it right there. Okay. So this part right here, watch his hands. Straight. One thing I think I might want to do is I'm going to go a couple frames past it, copy it, paste it, and then I'm going to go back over here, and a few frames before it, I'm going to paste it again. Actually, delete that. And undo that, just delete those two. Straight. So this right here, I actually want to have his hands come out further. Like this. So we get a bit of an arc. Okay. And I also want to have him lag behind a little bit. So I want to have him drop like this. There we go. And then I'm going to copy this keyframe and paste it right here. You can see how his hands rotate between or right through his legs. So right here, I'm actually going to pull his hands out a little bit, rotate them around. Same with this one, rotate it out a little bit. And then force a keyframe. And I'm actually going to drop them down in this next one here, so that they now as I'm looking at this, I want to copy this frame right here. I'm actually going to paste it right here because I think I wanted to hold it. It's disgusting. But I don't think I want it right there, so I'm going to actually put it just a few frames previous to that. And I'm actually going to do this. Animation is a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of, you copy keyframes, you look at them, you paste them here, you do this, you see if it's giving you what you want. And a lot of times the computer will give you something that's close, and so you use it. From my background, coming from my background, it's more of a video game background, and so what we're used to doing is we're used to animating on a really tight schedule. You got to get something out. When I was animating a scene for Meet the Robinsons, the video game, I had to do a scene where Wilbur walks into this room and kicks this robot, and it's a really short scene, but I had to have it done in like a day, and it was about 300, 400 frames, and so I had to have it done really quickly. So you get used to using kind of what the computer gives you and trying to make the best of what it has. Of course, if you're in feature films or something like that, if you're wanting to do some really detailed animation, you're going to take it a lot further than I am right now. But Okay, so right here, let's just roll his hands out. So that they don't go through his pants. And then right here, oops, let's force a keyframe here. Then over here, where he starts to turn, his hand, of course, is to be out in front of him. Let's force a keyframe there. It needs to lead him. Let's drop this hand a little bit, drop this shoulder, bring this one around a little bit, so lead him. Okay. Now I may take off this end here, but for right now I'm just kind of just figuring it all out.
Don't touch my stuff. This is my side of the living room, and that is your side of the living room. And must you break straight out of the milk carton? It's disgusting.
Okay, now one thing I see is there's a pop right here. Okay, so I think I've got pretty much all my in-betweens that I want in there. Now it's time to go start finessing. So now that I have that, now that I have all these in-betweens in, I'm going to go start finessing the animation, and we'll go to there.